At 80, I have learned something I wish I had understood much earlier. Loneliness can hurt, but being used can slowly destroy you. Loneliness may sit beside you in a quiet room. It may make the evenings feel longer. It may make the phone feel heavier when nobody calls. But being used reaches deeper. It makes you question your worth. It makes you wonder if people love you or only love what you can still give them. And there is a difference between missing people and losing yourself to them. When I was younger, I feared being alone more than almost anything. I thought an empty chair meant failure. I thought a quiet house meant nobody cared. I thought if people were around me, I was safe from loneliness. But old age teaches you quietly. It teaches you that not every person sitting near you brings comfort. Not every phone call brings love. Not every visit brings peace. Sometimes the person beside you can make you feel more alone than an empty room ever could. That is one of the hardest truths of aging, because when you get older, you start to notice patterns you ignored before. You notice who calls only when they need something. You notice who visits only when there is money, food, a favor, or convenience involved. You notice who listens with patience and who is only waiting for their turn to ask. You notice who sees your heart and who sees your usefulness. And once you notice it, you cannot unsee it. For many years, I tried to avoid loneliness by staying available. I answered every call. I opened my door even when I was tired. I gave more than I should have. I listened to people who never listened back. I helped even when helping left me weaker. I said yes because I thought no would push people away. I thought being needed meant being loved. But the hardest lesson came later. Being needed is not the same as being cherished. Some people need your time but do not respect your rest. Some people need your money but do not respect your sacrifice. Some people need your attention but do not care about your loneliness. Some people need your kindness but disappear when you need gentleness in return. And when that truth finally settles in your heart, you begin to understand that loneliness is not always the enemy. Sometimes loneliness is the space where you recover from being drained. The first thing I learned is that company without respect is not companionship. There were times when I allowed people into my life simply because I did not want to be alone. I ignored the way I felt after they left. I ignored the heaviness in my chest. I ignored the little voice inside me saying, "You are not peaceful around this person." I told myself, "At least someone came." That sentence can trap an older person. At least they called. At least they visited. At least they remembered me. At least I am not alone. But those words can make you accept very little from people who should be giving you basic respect. A person can sit in your living room and still make you feel invisible. They can drink your tea, eat your food, talk about their problems, ask for your help, and leave without once asking how you are truly doing. They may say they love you. They may call you family. They may hug you when they arrive and wave when they leave. But if every visit leaves you feeling emptied, that is not companionship. That is a quiet form of taking. This is where many of us make the mistake. We measure love by presence instead of peace. We say, "They came to see me," but we do not ask, "Did I feel respected while they were here?" We say, "They still call," but we do not ask, "Do they ever call without needing something?" We say, "They are family," but we do not ask, "Do they treat me like a person or like a resource?" At 80, I no longer judge relationships only by who appears. I judge them by what their presence does to my spirit. If someone comes into my home and brings calm, gratitude, respect, and warmth, I welcome that. But if someone brings pressure, guilt, criticism, demands, and confusion, then their presence is more painful than silence. A quiet room is easier to heal from than a loud heart. The second thing I learned is that people who use you often know exactly where your loneliness lives. This is painful to admit, but it is true. Some people can sense when an older person is hungry for connection. They know when you are waiting for a call. They know when you miss being needed. They know when your heart softens the moment someone says, "I need you." And if they are careless, they will use that softness. They may not think of themselves as cruel. They may even believe they are simply asking for help. But patterns reveal the truth. They call when they need money, but not when you are sick. They visit when they need a favor, but not when you are lonely. They flatter you before asking for something. They become distant when you say no. They make you feel guilty for having boundaries. They remind you of family duty, but forget family tenderness. And if you have been alone for a long time, you may accept it because some attention feels better than no attention. I understand that feeling. When the house is quiet for too many days, even a selfish call can feel like connection. When nobody asks how you are, even someone asking for help can make you feel useful. When you feel forgotten, being needed can feel like proof that you still matter. But listen carefully. You do not matter because people need you. You matter because you are a human being with a heart, a history, a soul, and a life that still belongs to you. People who only come when they need something are not reminding you of your worth. They are taking advantage of the fact that you forgot it for a moment. I did not understand this until I was much older. I thought the cure for loneliness was more people. Now I know the cure is better people and a stronger relationship with yourself. Do not let loneliness make you cheapen your own value. The wrong person will offer you a few minutes of attention in exchange for your peace, your money, your time, or your dignity. That is too high a price. The third thing I learned is that saying yes to keep people close often pushes you farther from yourself. For years I said yes when I wanted to say no. I said yes to visits when I was tired. I said yes to requests when I was worried about my own needs. I said yes to conversations that drained me. I said yes to family expectations that no longer fit my age, my strength, or my peace. And often, I did not say yes because I wanted to. I said yes because I was afraid. Afraid they would stop calling. Afraid they would think I was selfish. Afraid they would say I had changed. Afraid they would choose someone else. Afraid I would be left alone. Fear can wear the mask of kindness. Sometimes what we call generosity is really fear of abandonment. Sometimes what we call patience is really fear of conflict. Sometimes what we call family loyalty is really fear of being rejected by the people we have loved for so long. That is a hard mirror to look into. But if you keep saying yes out of fear, you slowly disappear from your own life. You lose your quiet mornings. You lose your rest. You lose your money. You lose your right to choose. You lose the peace of knowing your own limits. And one day, you may look around and realize everyone else has had access to you, but you have had no access to yourself. If you remember nothing else, remember this. A yes that betrays your peace is too expensive. There are people who will only stay close as long as you keep saying yes. Let them step back. There are people who will praise your kindness only while they benefit from it. Let them be disappointed. There are people who will call you selfish the moment you stop serving their comfort. Let them speak. Their disappointment is not always proof that you did wrong. Sometimes it is proof that you finally stopped abandoning yourself. At 80, I have learned to pause before saying yes. I ask myself, am I doing this from love or from fear? Am I helping because I can, or because I am afraid they will leave? That question has saved me from many quiet regrets. The fourth thing I learned is that loneliness has dignity when you stop begging to be chosen. There was a time when I chased people, not loudly, not in a way others would notice, but inside I chased. I waited for calls. I counted visits. I noticed who forgot birthdays, who did not reply, who came late, who left early, who only remembered me when it was convenient. I carried little hurts quietly and pretended they did not matter. Sometimes I would call first, not because I had something to say, but because I wanted to know if I still had a place in someone's life. Sometimes I would invite people over even when I knew they would come out of duty, not desire. Sometimes I would give more than I should have, hoping generosity would make me harder to forget. That is a lonely way to live. There is a loneliness that comes from being by yourself, and there is a deeper loneliness that comes from begging for a place in hearts that have already made room for other priorities. The second kind is worse, because when you are physically alone, at least you can create peace. You can make tea. You can sit near a window. You can listen to the birds. You can read, pray, rest, remember, or simply breathe. But when you are emotionally begging, there is no rest. Your mind keeps reaching toward people who are not reaching back. And every time they give you just enough attention to keep hope alive, you start waiting again. Old age becomes painful when you spend it auditioning for love. At 80, I no longer audition. I do not mean I never reach out. I do not mean I never miss people. I do not mean I have no tenderness left. I still love. I still care. I still hope. But I no longer try to prove that I am worthy of being remembered. If someone wants to be in my life with respect, they are welcome. If they only come when they need something, I have learned to step back. If they forget me, I do not chase them with my whole heart in my hands. Sometimes dignity means not knocking on a door that has already been opened only halfway for years. A lonely evening can be painful, but it is cleaner than sitting beside people who make you feel unwanted unless you are useful. The fifth thing I learned is that being used often begins with small exceptions. Rarely does someone take everything from you all at once. It begins with one small favor, then another, then a little money, then a ride, then a place to stay, then a repeated emergency, then emotional dumping, then expectations, then guilt when you hesitate. And because each request seems small by itself, you may not notice the pattern until you are already tired. This is especially dangerous for older people with good hearts. We have lived long enough to know hardship. We do not like seeing others struggle. We remember times when we needed help ourselves. We want to be generous. We want to leave behind love, not bitterness. But kindness without awareness can become an open door for people who do not respect limits. I once thought if I helped someone enough, they would eventually stand stronger on their own. Sometimes that happens, but sometimes help becomes a habit. Sometimes the more you give, the less responsible they become. Sometimes your sacrifice does not inspire gratitude. It creates expectation. And once expectation enters, appreciation often leaves. That is when you hear words like, "But you always helped before. You know I would not ask if it was not serious. You have more than I do. What else are you doing with it? You are my family. You are supposed to help." Those words can make an older person feel trapped. But love that requires you to harm yourself is not healthy love. Family duty that ignores your limits is not respect. A request that turns into anger when refused was never just a request. It was a demand in polite clothing. Now I watch for patterns early. I do not wait until I am exhausted to admit what is happening. I notice how people respond when I cannot help. I notice whether they respect my answer. I notice whether they still treat me warmly when I am not useful. A person's reaction to your boundary tells you more than their request ever could. If they punish you for saying no, the no was necessary. The sixth thing I learned is that peace feels strange when you are used to being drained. This one surprised me. After you step back from people who use you, there is often silence. The phone rings less. The visits become fewer. The messages stop. The people who once surrounded you suddenly become busy when you are no longer available to serve their needs. At first, that silence can hurt badly. You may think, was that all I was to them? You may feel foolish for all the times you gave. You may feel angry. You may feel sad. You may wonder if you made the wrong choice. You may be tempted to call, apologize, or offer help again just to bring the noise back. But be careful. Sometimes we miss people. Sometimes we only miss the familiar pattern. If you have spent years being needed, calm can feel like abandonment. If you have spent years solving everyone's problems, quiet can feel like uselessness. If you have spent years being drained, peace can feel almost uncomfortable because your body is not used to it. But give peace time. Let the silence become clean. Let your home breathe again. Let your mornings belong to you. Let your mind stop rehearsing arguments and demands. Let your heart learn that it can be loved without being used, and that even if love is not arriving from the people you expected, you do not have to return to mistreatment just to avoid emptiness. A quiet life is not an empty life. Sometimes it is life after the noise has finally left. I have learned to fill my quiet with small, honest things. A simple breakfast, a chair near the window, a walk when my body allows it, a few pages of reading, a prayer, a memory that no longer needs to hurt so much, a call to someone who does not drain me, a task done slowly, a room kept peaceful. Younger people may not understand this. They may think a quiet day is nothing. But to an older heart that has survived years of emotional exhaustion, a quiet day can be mercy. The seventh thing I learned is that some people must be loved from a distance. This is the lesson that brings both pain and freedom. There are people I still love, but I no longer allow them to use me. There are people I pray for, but I do not give them full access. There are people I wish well, but I do not answer every call. There are people whose names still soften something in me, but I know better than to reopen certain doors. That is not hatred, it is wisdom. Some people confuse love with access. They believe if you love them, you must always be available, always forgiving, always helping, always listening, always saying yes, always absorbing whatever they bring. But love without limits can become self-destruction. And when you are older, self-destruction becomes more costly. You cannot keep letting people disturb your health, your sleep, your finances, your peace, and your dignity just because you love them. Love can remain even when access changes. You can love someone and still refuse to be manipulated. You can love someone and still stop lending money. You can love someone and still let the phone ring. You can love someone and still keep your door closed. You can love someone and still say, I cannot do this anymore. Sometimes the most honest love is the kind that stops pretending everything is fine. And this next one is painful because it often involves family. Family can make distance feel like betrayal. People may say, how can you treat your own blood this way? But I have learned that blood does not give anyone the right to drain your remaining years. Family should not be a lifelong permission slip for disrespect. The people who truly love you may not always like your boundaries, but they will try to understand them. They may feel disappointed, but they will not destroy you for protecting yourself. They may need time, but they will not punish you for having limits. The ones who become cruel when you stop being useful are showing you what the relationship was built on. Believe what their reaction reveals. The eighth thing I learned is that loneliness becomes lighter when you stop seeing it as shame. Many older people suffer twice. First, they suffer because they are lonely. Then they suffer because they feel ashamed of being lonely. They think, what did I do wrong? They think, why does nobody come? They think, maybe I was not loved as much as I thought. They think, maybe I am difficult. They think, maybe this is all I deserve. Loneliness can make the mind cruel. But being alone does not mean you failed. It does not mean you were unworthy. It does not mean your life had no value. It does not mean you are forgotten by everything that matters. Sometimes loneliness comes because life changes. People move. Children build their own worlds. Friends pass away. Bodies slow down. Communities disappear. Old routines end. The world becomes louder and less patient. The table that once held many voices becomes quiet. That is painful, but it is not shameful. The shame belongs to those who only remember older people when they need something. The shame belongs to those who take from a lonely heart and give nothing gentle back. The shame belongs to those who treat elders like furniture in the background of life until they need money, comfort, childcare, forgiveness, or a favor. Your loneliness is not proof that you are worthless. It is proof that your heart still knows the value of connection. And because connection is valuable, you must not waste it on people who use you. Better one honest friend than 10 relatives who only call with demands. Better one peaceful afternoon alone than a house full of people who leave your spirit bruised. Better a quiet meal with dignity than a crowded table where you feel like a servant to everyone's needs. At 80, I have stopped treating loneliness like an emergency that must be solved at any cost. Some costs are too high. Being used is one of them. There is another truth I want to speak gently. Choosing loneliness over being used does not mean you never feel sad. You will feel sad. There will be evenings when the quiet feels heavy. There will be holidays that hurt. There will be moments when you remember the house full of voices and wonder where everyone went. There will be days when you miss even the people who were not good for your peace. That is normal. Do not mistake grief for weakness. Do not mistake sadness for proof that your boundary was wrong. When you stop allowing people to use you, you may grieve the illusion you were holding. You may grieve the family you wanted. You may grieve the child, relative, friend, or neighbor you hoped would treat you differently. You may grieve the version of love you kept waiting for. That grief is real. But do not let grief send you back to the same hands that emptied you. Sometimes the heart misses what hurt it because the heart remembers the good moments too. A kind word here, a warm visit there, a memory from years ago, a smile, a holiday, a time when things felt better. The mind collects these moments and asks, maybe I should try again. Maybe sometimes, with changed behavior and real respect, there is room for repair. But do not confuse memory with evidence. Look at the pattern now, not what they promised, not what they were years ago, not who you wish they would become. Look at what they repeatedly do. Repeated behavior is a language. Learn to read it. If someone repeatedly uses your loneliness to get what they want, step back. If someone repeatedly ignores your boundaries, step back. If someone repeatedly makes you feel guilty for protecting yourself, step back. If someone repeatedly disappears when you need care but returns when they need help, step back. Distance does not need to be loud. You do not have to announce it. You do not have to explain every detail. You do not have to hold a trial. You do not have to make people admit what they did. Sometimes dignity means walking away without proving your pain. You can simply become less available. Shorter calls, fewer explanations, no quick promises, no money decisions made under pressure, no visits when your body says rest, no emotional labor for people who never ask how you are. This is practical peace, not dramatic, not bitter, not cruel, just practical. There comes a time when you must become the guardian of your own remaining life. No one else can do that fully for you. People may love you, but they have their own lives. People may care, but they may not notice what drains you. People may mean well, but still ask too much. And some people do not mean well at all. So you must learn to protect what is left. Your time, your energy, your money, your sleep, your home, your mind, your dignity, your heart. These things matter, even at 80, especially At 80, do not believe the lie that because you are older, your comfort matters less. Do not believe the lie that because your children are grown, your only purpose is to keep giving. Do not believe the lie that because you live alone, you must accept any company you can get. No. You are allowed to choose peace over noise. You are allowed to choose solitude over disrespect. You are allowed to choose your chair, your tea, your quiet room, your own breathing, over a person who comes only to take. There is strength in that, a strength younger people may not understand. They may call it isolation. They may call it stubbornness. They may say you have changed. Maybe you have. Maybe you have finally changed into someone who no longer negotiates with disrespect. Maybe you have finally changed into someone who can sit alone without handing your life to the first person who knocks. Maybe you have finally changed into someone who understands that love should not feel like being slowly emptied. That is not a bad change. That is wisdom. At 80, I still believe in love. I still believe in family. I still believe in kindness, forgiveness, and connection. I do not want a hard heart. I do not want to spend my last years suspicious of everyone. But I also do not want to spend them being used by people who know I am lonely and count on it. So I have made peace with some quiet. I have made peace with fewer calls if the calls that remain are sincere. I have made peace with fewer visitors if the visitors who come bring respect. I have made peace with a smaller circle if that circle allows me to breathe. I have made peace with being alone sometimes because I am no longer alone with people who make me feel invisible. That is a different kind of freedom. It may not look exciting. It may not impress anyone. It may not fill every chair around the table, but it lets me keep my dignity. And dignity in old age is worth protecting. So if you are listening to this, and you have been allowing people to use you because you are afraid of loneliness, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not wrong for wanting love. You are not weak because you miss people. You are not foolish because you hoped family would treat you gently. You are human. But do not let your hunger for connection make you accept emotional crumbs from people who keep taking full meals from your life. Do not pay for attention with your peace. Do not buy company with your savings. Do not trade your dignity for a temporary visit. Do not keep saying yes just so someone will keep calling. The right people will not require you to abandon yourself to stay close to them. The right people will care about how you feel after they leave. The right people will ask, not demand. The right people will respect your no. The right people will remember you when they do not need anything. And until those people come, or if they are few, learn to sit with yourself gently. Make your home peaceful. Keep small routines. Protect your body. Feed your mind. Speak kindly to yourself. Let the quiet become a companion instead of a punishment. Loneliness is painful, yes, but being used is a slow theft. It steals your trust. It steals your rest. It steals your confidence. It steals your joy. It steals the little strength you need for your own life. And you are allowed to stop the theft. You are allowed to say, I cannot. You are allowed to say, not this time. You are allowed to say, I need to think about it. You are allowed to say, I am not discussing this. You are allowed to say nothing at all. Peace does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it begins with one unanswered call, one refused demand, one shorter visit, one private decision, one evening where you choose yourself without explaining it to anyone. At 80, I have learned that loneliness may visit me, but it does not own me. And being used may have hurt me, but it does not get to define the rest of my life. I would rather sit alone with my peace than sit surrounded by people who only see what they can take. I would rather have a quiet room than a noisy life full of hidden demands. I would rather be remembered by a few sincere hearts than be surrounded by many hands reaching for something. That is not sadness. That is clarity. If this message speaks to you, share your age in the comments. Tell me whether you have ever chosen loneliness over being used, and whether it brought you pain, peace, or both. You may find that many others are carrying the same quiet truth. And if nobody has told you this lately, let me say it now. Your loneliness does not make you worthless. Your boundaries do not make you cruel. Your peace still matters. Your dignity still matters. And your remaining years should not be spent proving your love to people who only value you when they need something.